Okay, so we'll start off with the story that Logan Paul is gonna fight Floyd Mayweather, and I don't even I I'll watch it. I'm gonna be honest with you. I'll watch it. I'll be honest with you, but I don't mean it's good for boxing because I watch it. I'll watch two bums fight over a can of soup. I mean, fighting's entertaining to watch, right? So, yeah, I'll watch it, and there's gonna be people that even. I promise you, there will be people that think Logan Paul's gonna win this fight because they're gonna say it's size and people are simple-minded. That's why that's gonna come, right? But that's not good for boxing. I don't know. I I don't know. I'd rather see Floyd fight Connor or Khabib. I mean, even I thought those were going to be. Even I thought that's kind of ridiculous going forward, right? We'd seen the Connor one. I thought that was kind of ridiculous. But he's going to fight Logan Paul in a boxing match. Logan Paul's 0-1 in pro boxing too. That's the sad part. He's not even like KSI's 1-0. Logan Paul's 0-1. So it's like not even like a guy that you were like, well, he hasn't lost. You know what I mean? Like, no, this dude's lost. We've seen it. I was there. I went. And Dana White has to be laughing about this. Like, he has to be laughing at boxing. Like, boxing just, it does it to itself, though. But it's going to fix itself because people just will stop giving these dudes money. And then someone will come and buy it. And he'll buy all the promotions, he'll buy all the fighters, and he'll own the whole thing like Dana White does, right? And I'm not even sure that like it's great how Dana White runs MMA because I think the fighters get, they probably could make more money if it was run more like boxing. But then if no leadership has it on it, it just kills itself because everybody's looking out for their own. So it's like it's a double-edged sword. Truly is a double-edged sword. And Dana White he has to be laughing. He truly does. He has to be laughing. And I think boxing is trying to catch it. Like Eddie Hearn's trying to catch it. He's like, okay, I'm not going to, if the best guys don't want to fight each other and they want to get paid these massive things for tune-up fights, I won't do it. And that's the way to go about it, right? So I'm saying boxing's going to fix itself, right? And it's hopefully that one of these guys catches it before people stop paying them to show fights, because that's what's going to happen if they're just doing tune-up fights. Now, ESPN just gave another deal to Top Rank, and I don't know why they did that. Right, especially what Top Rank gave them right out the pandemic. I don't know what they were thinking, or I hope that they got a thing where they can control the matchups, because Bob Arum, if you let him, he will rob you. That's what Bob Arum does. Bob Arum's a crook. He's a crook to fans. Like that's the worst type of crook. It's to rob millions of people. Loyal fan to your sport. He will do that to you. Bob Arum is Vince McMahon. If Vince McMahon's character on TV was a real person, that's what Bob Arum is. And I don't care for Dana White, and I think Dana White's going to have his own issues coming together with like all the political stuff that's going to come, because you're not going to escape that without running into that issue, especially today, right? And I think that Israel Adesanya might be the start of that coming up, because he's not going to be quiet on these issues, because Israel Adesanya is a smart guy and he's an outspoken guy. And Dana White is really in on that Republican thing, and he's doing it because look what the NFL doing, look what the NBA is doing. He thinks I'm going to steal all these fans, and he might. People are surprising. You know what I mean? There's a lot of backwards thought in this country, and MMA is pretty built for like that kind of fan, right? And I love MMA. I love the sport. I'm not watching it right now because of everything going on and just where the stands that Dana White's taking, right? But I love the sport, and I'm not saying that the sport itself, like fighting, but it does, because wrestling. So what happened, right, in like the 90s, right? 90s, 80s, 90s, 2000s. White Americans were not top boxers, right? There's very few and far between. They even created a saying for it, the Great White Hope, right? Not the Great White Hope was a fighter that looked all right, looked good, right? Not an elite prospect, but they would hype him up because there wasn't a lot of them, so they can get an audience behind them. They call them the Great White Hope. Common expression in boxing. And when MMA came along, you had guys like Chuck Liddell, right? Chuck Liddell looked nothing like what boxing was giving, right? He was a big white guy, mohawk, tattoos. He looked like a guy at a bar. He looked like the fans watching. They were like, oh, wait, I kind of look like that guy. And he's a top guy, and he's a tough fighter, and he knocks people out. And you kind of watch what you relate to is kind of what you watch, right? And it's kind of like, oh, I can see, I can see that. Looks more like me. Chuck Liddell was not not at the an athlete enough to make it in boxing, right? So you got into a sport where it's like, well, you don't have to be great at one thing. You just have to be all right at a multiple scale of things, right? So then that favored wrestlers. If you're a wrestler, though, no one was doing wrestling, right? Like, so if you're a wrestler in this sport, it says you could take them down and hold them down, right? And you're going to win that round. Well, that favors a wrestler. And then wrestling, I would say the guys that most wrestlers came in were predominantly white. So MMA came in with the predominantly white fighters, and they were all tattoos, and they painted their hair and they painted their nails, and they just looked more like the guy watching at the bar, right? So it favored that kind of crowd. Fights were quicker, right? It was early MMA was really low on skill level. Like if you watch MMA now as compared to then, right? I'm not saying MMA now. MMA now skill level is really high, but back then it was. Go watch a Ken Shamrock fight. Go watch a Chemo fight. Watch Gracie, he's winning jiu-jitsu. That crap would never work today in MMA, right? The jiu-jitsu he's using, then just using jiu-jitsu, right, would never work today. It literally would not. And you had guys like Matt Hughes and stuff like that, just real basic fighters, not like the most great athletes or anything like that, just basic fighters, right? But they looked a certain way. And it favored to a certain crowd. It just did. And wrestlers finally had something to watch. Because wrestling by itself couldn't be a pro sport. Like legit college wrestling could not be, by itself. It couldn't be anything. No one's gonna pay to watch wrestling. I promise you. But now they had a sport where they can actually be the top guy, and people wanted to watch it because it was bloody, it was violent, it was quick. Too, the fights were quick. Like you can knock 6 fights and all end in the first round. Right? It's quick. It's like I compare it to TikTok. It's like TikTok, right? If I look at TikTok's not the funniest thing, right? They're not the funniest videos in the world. They're humor. There's humor in them, right? But I could get past them quick. Oh, this one's no good. Go to the next one. Go to the next one. That's kind of like what watching a UFC card is sometimes. It's just like, okay, this fight's not that good. Don't worry. It's only going to be 3 rounds. Probably quicker than that. And then we'll go to the next one. And boxing, it's more, you got to commit a little bit more to it. 12 rounds, 10 rounds. Not everything ends up knockout. A lot of decisions. You know what I mean? It takes, I understand. To me, I can't even watch those cards together. Have to be in a certain time to watch a boxing card and a certain time to watch an MMA card because it's just 2 different energies with them. And so with all that, it builds a certain audience, right? It builds a certain audience. And that audience, right, just happens, right, to be Trump supporters. I mean, just happens, just to be someone similar to what would support Trump, right? And Dana White has leaned into that. And Trump has leaned into it. And to say that he's going to go through all this and not run into a drama, and he's been pretty vocal on what side he's on, right? And the media's afraid to ask him any questions because he controls that part too, because he could get the MMA media thrown out of there. He could choose who really covers his sport. So they're going to have that issue. They're not going to escape that. But on the business side of it, they have the perfect model. They don't have to pay the fighters a lot. They could fight them 4 times a year. They're bringing in this contender series where they have these guys that are very low paid, probably making about 10 grand a fight, and he could fill a whole card with these guys. And he's realizing that the fans don't even truly care about skill level. Not that much. It's not that important. It's more just, are these guys willing to go balls to the wall, get knockouts, bleed? It's more that than it is like, well, I'm going to see the highest skill level at all these things. They don't. He knows that. He sees it. That's why he's getting contender series guys nonstop. He had the most skilled guys. He had Demetrius Johnson. I think that's where he probably learned this, was he had Mighty Mouse, who was probably the most skilled guy to ever be in MMA. Besides Conor. I think Conor's, they're neck and neck. But one of the most skilled guys to ever do it. And no one watched him. So he was like, skill doesn't matter. That's what he realized. He's like, I can just get a bunch of these guys as long as they're tough. That's why he says, like, I like a guy that goes for a knockout. he speaks opposite of what his sport really is. Like if a guy goes for a takedown, I'm not signing this guy. Why? Because he went for a takedown and he got to stay standing. Don't leave it to the judges. And we're like that. When the sport favors a guy who goes for a takedown, because look at Khabib, look at Matt Hughes, look at all the guys that this sport was built on. George St. Pierre. These are all takedown guys that would ride out for a decision. And now suddenly he's looking for guys. No, I want guys to stand up. I want guys that are aggressive. I want guys to go for knockouts. Why did he do it to the lower level guys? Because they're not going to do anything. Because he's just going to have those guys fight and knock each other out and then go to the next guy. And if he happens to catch fire with one guy, then he catches fire with one guy. And boxing, right, shoots itself in the foot all the time. Every day. Every day they do it. They get main events that are just lopsided matchups. It makes no sense. And it makes no sense why the fighter does it. I guess he gets an easy paycheck, but doesn't grow his sport, doesn't grow him, doesn't really, not big paydays as it could be. It's all scattered. Promoters all scattered. Everything's all scattered. So MMA's winning. I'm not going to lie to you. Dana White's smart. The way he has this, it's revolutionary. It's what he thought and nailed and pulled out. I'm not doubting him. He's a genius, right? Genius when it comes to a promotion and how he got the thing. Now, did he have an advantage, right? Because no one else was there? Yes, but he was the only one that had the vision, right? He had the vision and he got it. Can't blame him. What was it? So what? He did it, right? Now boxing, it's going to fix itself because it's going to get to a point where no one's going to watch this anymore. If you keep giving those matchups, people are going to stop paying you and people are going to stop watching it. If you keep giving those matchups. If Bob Arum still runs this like it's the 90s and the 80s, it will die. It has to grow. And that's what they're running it like. And Al Heyman, right? You can't give tune-up fights you can't get a tune-up fight every week. I can't do it. It has to be good matchups. And that's what we're getting. And I don't know. I don't know how it, I don't know when it's going to happen, but it will happen. It will happen. It will fix itself because boxing will always be around. Like, I'm not ever worried about, like, oh, boxing's going to disappear. It won't. It just has to get the right things. And right now it's a down point. It's a really low point for it. And I think we got to get rid of the pay-per-view model. I think you got to get more fights, great fights on free TV, like what they're doing Lomachenko in Teofimo. That's a great fight. That's probably one of the best fights you can make this year, right? Besides Wilder Fury, like they're right there neck and neck. Wilder Fury rematch, Teofimo and Loma, great fights this year, and that's on ESPN. And we need more of that. We need so much more of that. And if people start delivering on that, people will come and watch. No doubt about it. People will come and watch. But right now, MMA is winning, and Floyd Mayweather versus Logan Paul, it doesn't help boxing. It truly doesn't. It doesn't help boxing. It's an event, one time only type of event, but it doesn't grow the sport. We're past that. We're past those things. That's what MMA did to start off because they needed to build a name, but boxing already has a name built. We're past that. And this is people just looking out for their own, and I can't blame them for that, but that's because you don't have a leader. There's fights this weekend. I'll give a breakdown on like a Twitter post or something like that. I was going to do a podcast on it, but I feel like I just kind of want to start talk the state of both sports right now. And MMA has the lead, and I'll give them that. That they're not going to be without their own controversies coming forward, though. And they're going to see if this model keeps working where you don't have, the highest skilled guys and you're just putting out maybe not even like the highest level of skill product, but you're just putting out guys over and over and over again. We're going to see how that goes. And we'll see how it goes going forward. But this has been The Weigh-In. Thank you for watching.